Hey everybody, this is my 1990 Jeep Grand Wagoneer. I'm going to be talking a little bit about this Jeep, the quirks, the problem points that you want to look for if you ever decide to purchase one of these vehicles, if you can ever afford one these days, and the positives, not just the cons. But so this Jeep right here, like I said, is a 90. It was actually built in 89, but because the way car manufacturers, date their vehicles, I believe it was built in August of 89. So all of the stampings for the sheet metal and the bumpers and all of that stuff are 89, but the Jeep is a 90. The Wagoneer was built from 63, I believe, to 91. There were all kinds of different various models, especially in the earlier years, like the 60s and the 70s, back when Kaiser had Jeep, and then AMC bought Kaiser. They have like super Wagoneers and etc. But when Chrysler took over, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was 84, they decided to get rid of that whole Wagoneer name, and they actually named the Cherokees Wagoneers, and then they called the Wagoneers Grand Wagoneers. And that's confusing because when you think of a Wagoneer, you don't think of a Cherokee. And on top of that, in 93, when the Grand Cherokee came out, they actually called a limited number of those a Grand Wagoneer, and they put wood paneling on the side. So it's very confusing. But again, this is a Grand Wagoneer. The Wagoneers came pretty much loaded with everything. I think there were a few options you could buy here and there, but pretty much everything is power. You got leather interior. This one, unfortunately, as I owned it, my back tends to sweat on the corner right here, and I kind of ruined the seat right there, unfortunately. But the rest of it is still in great shape. Now, if you are a Wagoneer owner, you will know that this is not the original center armrest. This is actually a Buick Roadmaster center armrest, and I actually have a write-up on how to install that on fsjnetwork.com if you're interested. So the interior of the vehicle mine is dirty. I need to clean the interior now, not just the outside, but the interior of the vehicle is extremely comfortable. If you have never sat in a antique or a classic car, and you've pretty much grown up on more modern vehicles, you have no idea what comfy is. Now, my Grand Cherokee, for example, the Grand Cherokees in the 90s, everybody says that those vehicles are comfortable, and they are. However, with all of the plastic on the Grand Cherokee that they have, like right here, my shins and my knee tends to hit all of that stuff. But yeah, it's a really luxurious interior. The door paneling was leather. This is a vinyl handle in order to shut the door. This is actually a chrome handle that you use to open the vehicle when you're getting out. The power mirror is right here. You got left and right. You have 360-degree power mirrors. You have electronic door locks. You have power windows. Now, in the 90s, a lot more vehicles started having power, so this may not seem, wow, that's amazing to you guys. But the Wagoneers in the 60s, 70s, 80s, they all had like power mirrors and power seats. So that was something unheard of for most vehicles, because back then you had manual windows and you had manual seats. So you got power seats right here. There is no lumbar support. There is no back tilt that goes back and down. The entire seat actually will tilt, which is interesting. And like all Wagoneers, you have a third seat in the center. So when you flip this up, you can actually sit little Jimmy in the center if you want, with a lap belt. And that's just the way they did things. So you got the typical smoker's ashtray, which vehicles today do not have. The rear doors And listen to the way these doors open. You don't have, sorry, it's a mess, I know. You don't have that sound when you open and close the door these days. So the rear door is the same thing. You got leather, you got a carpet on the bottom, like a little shag carpet. You got a vinyl grab for the closing the door, and you also have ashtrays in the back. So I guess your kids can smoke cigarettes. I have no idea why they included ashtrays in the back of these vehicles, but they did. The rear of the vehicle, unfortunately mine, the wood paneling has faded in the back here because the way I parked the vehicle where I used to live, the sun was beating in the back. And you will notice one thing about this Wagoneer is I don't have red turn signals. I actually prefer amber turn signals, so I purchased these from South America because amber is just much safer than red turn signals. I don't know about you guys, but I have a hard time seeing people with red turn signals, and I absolutely hate it. And I wish the United States would stop allowing red turn signals, please. So this Jeep, the trailer hitch on the back of this Jeep is actually from a '79 Cherokee Chief. My Jeep did not have a trailer hitch when I bought it. Now it did come with one from factory, so I have the wiring for the trailer lights, and I also think I have a electronic brake control down there. It's a big box, big computer box or whatever. But one thing you will notice if you purchase one of these Jeeps is the parts are pretty much interchangeable from all years. Now, some things did change, like the frames might have changed slightly, but pretty much everything is interchangeable. So you have a '79 Cherokee or '78 Cherokee Chief trailer hitch, Class 4 hitch that's in the back there. Some of these Jeeps, oddly enough, they did come with pretty puny trailer hitches that you don't want to be pulling pretty much anything with, so I don't know why they included that with them. You want the heavy-duty trailer hitch. Now, what I did to this Jeep was I bought a folding spare tire carrier, and this is actually a Kurt tire carrier that I cut the square tubing that went this way off, and I drilled a hole through the center of this, and that way I can mount my spare tire carrier on this thing. So when I pull the pin out, the tire actually folds down, and it allows me access to the tailgate. Now, this Jeep does have a tailgate, like a pickup truck. The window will roll down, and the tailgate opens up when you grab the handle on the inside. Unfortunately, one of the major problems with these Jeeps, and if you do purchase one, you are going to experience it, I guarantee you, is the rear window. It is a pain in the butt. Sometimes it will work flawlessly. Other times it just won't work at all. Unfortunately, when Jeep, AMC, not just Chrysler, but AMC, when they installed these little locks back here, because this will flip open, you stick your key in there or screwdriver, whatever you want to use, and it'll roll the window down. Fortunately, there is a switch on there that is identical to the switches, hey kitty, right here. And as you notice, I actually stole one of the switches on my power seats right here. So this switch is plastic, and over the years, that plastic breaks, and you no longer have a power mirror or power window that works. And on top of that, once the connection is broken, your dash switch will not work either. So you have to pull all of this out. There are like little circular pins on the inside that hold the window on each side, and those are a pain in the ass to get to. It's just a nightmare. I hate it. In the 6 years that I've owned this vehicle, I have had to take this window apart like maybe 7 times. It's very frustrating. One time, the dash switch stuck up, and I didn't realize it, and it actually burned out the motor. The second time, the gearing, which is plastic, broke, so I had to replace the plastic gear. The switch has broken on me 2 or 3 times. It's very frustrating. So if you do want to get one of these vehicles, be prepared for that to not work. Another feature for the 90 to 91, and I believe the 89, is they had a rear wiper. The earlier years never had rear wipers. None of them did. Only 89, 90, 91. And that's partially the reason why people like the later years, because they're more refined. They had a little more features here and there, little knickknacks that Chrysler added. And the rear wiper was one of them. Now, the rear wiper motor on this Jeep was a piece of crap. It's like a plastic box that breaks, and yeah, I know, I got a toilet in the back there. I actually just bought that. Like I said, I have not cleaned the inside of the vehicle. So the rear wiper motor breaks, and you don't have a rear wiper. The Jeep also has a spray nozzle. This is actually the original spray nozzle, which is impossible to find. Mine works. Unfortunately, the clip on the inside broke, so the nozzle kind of tilts the wrong way. And on top of that, I have a backup camera that I installed back here, and I decided to fish the wiring through the rear nozzle down here, which connects to the reverse lights, hence the backup camera. So I don't really care if the nozzle doesn't spray. The wiper works because I did a Dodge Durango modification. You can actually buy a Dodge Durango motor, build a bracket for yourself in here, drill out the hole, and put a new wiper arm on there, and it works. These Jeeps also came with a spoiler in the back. Some vehicles today actually still have that. The spoiler supposedly is to keep the fumes out of the vehicle or the rain out of the vehicle when the window's down. I don't know if that actually functions properly or not. I haven't tested it, so all I know is it's pretty cool. Some of these Jeeps do not have that. So if you find these in the junkyard, grab the spoiler because they will sell for money, trust me. The other feature that my Jeep has that the later year Wagoneers did not have is I have the stainless steel drip trays, or drip rails. So these are covers. The drip rails on this Jeep are actually part of the roof, and these are stainless steel covers. What Chrysler did when they took over was they actually stopped making the stainless steel, and they put plastic covers on there because it is Chrysler. Now the plastic covers, they crack, they turn yellow over time, they look like crap. And on top of that, Chrysler decided to put plastic trim right here on the window. I have no idea why they decided to do that. But again, it cracks, it turns yellow, it looks ugly. So if you find an older Wagoneer or Cherokee Chief or whatever, look for the stainless steel right here. You can actually remove it by drilling the rivets out right here. The stainless steel drip trays, you actually take a very old-fashioned bottle opener from, like, the 20s or 30s or whatever, and you gently pop it off, tape it, and it pops right off. It's very simple. If you don't want to put these on your Jeep, or if you're just a junkyard person, get these things anyway if you do find them, because they will sell for $300 easily. It's good money. Now, this Jeep, I also tinted the windows, so the tint is 10%. And the reason why I did that is because the Jeep is just all window. The whole Jeep is just all windows. You have tiny little pillars right here, these tiny little baby pillars. And unfortunately, when the sun is beating down, it's shining right on your leather. It makes the interior hotter than it already is. And I decided to tint it 10% because, it looks actually kind of cool, don't you think? Especially now that I polished the paint, polished the stainless steel. It looks pretty good, doesn't it? So I think it does. So, not everything is chrome. So when you look at stuff like this, you're like, man, that chrome looks great, right? Well, no. The things that are chrome would be the roof rack brackets. This is aluminum. This is stainless steel. This is stainless steel. Now, some of the options for these Jeeps were these little drip tray sun visors on the side of the windows. They're very useful, trust me. The problem with this Jeep on the interior is, in the later years, these visors are short. And they're short because of this center console right here. The earlier years had longer visors, and the longer visor would actually cover this whole thing. The shorter visor stops right here. And believe it or not, these little drip trays actually work great as sun visors too. So half the time I don't even need to turn my visor over because it's blocking the sun right there. So on top of looking cool, they're actually pretty functional. The door handles, these are chrome. They're not stainless steel. So the power mirrors, these are chrome. And the way you can tell is the chrome actually starts to pit. You see the pitting over years. The stainless steel doesn't. The stainless steel basically stays the same from factory from 50 years ago to today, minus some scratches and stuff like that. But the chrome pits, and to be honest, I hate chrome. I would prefer stainless steel or anodized aluminum over chrome. That's just me. The windows, the driver's window, or sorry, the main windshield, that's stainless steel trim. And unfortunately with these windows is they tend to leak. Mine actually was leaking, and you can actually see the two windows are delaminating. That's common for older vehicles. So what I did to stop it from leaking was I actually took some silicone. Maybe you can see it, and I kind of squished it in here all the way around the windshield, and it stopped leaking in the vehicle after that. Previous owner, I have no idea what the hell he did here, but clearly the window was leaking up here, and he put some kind of non-UV resistant goop, probably that Goop 9000 or whatever that stuff is called, and he squished it in there to stop it from leaking. This is not rust. This is actually the goop that I scraped out, and then I kind of painted it a little bit because he put so much crap in here that when it was raining, the rain was dripping right over and into the vehicle, basically. These drain rails you want to keep clear because they actually will help keep water out of your vehicle. These older vehicles, they do leak. The Grand Wagoneers and the Wagoneers, apparently they leaked from factory. There's people, I actually met a man who was in his, he's almost 70 years old, and he used to work for AMC. And he told me that what they would do from factory was they would actually take the doors and they would put their knees on the bottom of them and pull the door in or push it out in order to help it seal better. So it's it's interesting the way these older vehicles, the quirks that they have. Now, another thing that I did in order to help the vehicle from leaking was I actually put some weather sealant right here. You can see the little strip right here, and it actually forms a channel on the inside, and it actually allows the water to run down. Factory came with these little flaps, and you also have the door seals right here. They are a one-piece door seal. Another thing that you can do to help your old door seal is take some rope and stick it inside there, and that will actually push the door seal out more, and it'll actually help it keep it from leaking. Ever since I did these little things, I have not had any leaks in the vehicle anymore. So you might want to give it a shot if you have one of these Jeeps. Unfortunately, the dash is vinyl, and they tend to warp like mine has. They tend to warp right where the heater vents are for the defrost and defog. This one's pretty bad. It's not horrible, but it's getting there. The seat on this one is in great shape. The carpet is like a shaggy carpet, and what I like about these older vehicles is they actually have a cover right here. Once you take the carpet off, you unbolt the cover, and you can actually work on the transmission or the vacuum lines for the transfer case, which are right down there. Newer vehicles do not have that. This Jeep does not have locking hubs like the older vehicles do. It's a little more modern. The transfer case does all the work for you. You don't need to lock the hubs. Now, that's actually kind of nice because and these Jeeps came with Dana 44s. The older ones may have came with, different axles, but most of the newer ones from like the 80s and 70s, I think, they all came with Dana 44s. You got a Dana 44 in the front, a Dana 44 in the rear. To whereas the Grand Cherokees will have like a Dana 35 in the rear and a Dana 30 in the front, or a Dana 44 in the rear. Wranglers, I think, had the same thing. So I know a lot of people actually will take the Wagoneer axles and put them in their Jeeps because they're just a much better axle. Now, as I said, these Jeeps come with, you can bolt pretty much anything on them from prior years. For example, this is not the original grille on this Jeep. The original grille of mine is up here. The later Grand Wagoneers had a horrible looking grille. It actually had like little slits that went this way instead of the typical Jeep grille that you would see. There's all kinds of grills for these Jeeps. You got the Razor grill, you got the Rhino grill, you got the Pig grill, you got whatever grill. This one is, see, my grill from factory said Jeep right here. Sorry, this one, this grill is two pieces. You got the insert right here, and you have the actual outer insert. The outer one for this one actually said, this is called the Muscle Grill, I believe. The outer one actually had Jeep up here. So this is actually my original piece right here, and I just put the Muscle Grill in the center because what's the point of having Jeep and Jeep? It's kind of dumb, right? The later years also had this Jeep hood ornament. They did have like a spring inside of them, so when you wash your car, the ornament can, move around and flex, but they tend to break. So I actually drilled mine and screwed it. So now it's one solid piece. This is actually chrome as well. And you can also tell, like I said, because the chrome starts to fall apart. This is aluminum. The bumpers, believe it or not, are not steel. They are actually aluminum bumpers. They are anodized aluminum to make them really shiny. And unfortunately, over time, the anodized coating starts to fade, and you can never really get that shine back that these bumpers had originally from factory. Now, this brush guard is another example of bolt-ons. This is a brush guard from a 78 Cherokee Chief. They all bolt up. Again, the frames are the same. They all have the same bolt holes. As a matter of fact, the earlier Kaiser Jeeps had round headlights in here, not the square ones. So you can actually see the round cutting from the stamping from factory when the machines, stamp the holes and all that stuff in the sheet metal. And that's all interchangeable. There's only a few little things you have to tweak here and there. So it's really cool that you can put a grill from a 63 in there. Now, as I was talking about the axles, the outer hubs that have the inner outer wheel bearing and the spindle bearing, on the newer ones, they're actually much simpler to work on. You only have the outer wheel bearing, the race, the inner wheel bearing, and the race that the bearing rides inside. And then you have a spring and you have a nut, and that's pretty much it. There's also like a flat sheet of metal in there, to whereas the older ones had like a gazillion parts and they all just fly out when you work on it. Not really, but there's a lot of parts to them. The newer ones are a little simplified. The Jeep came with a 5.9 liter or 360 cubic inch AMC V8. The transmission on this thing is a 727 3-speed automatic, which is actually the the grandfather of the current transmission in the later year, the 90s ZJ Grand Cherokees. The automatic 46RE, 44RE, 42RE is actually based off of the 727. Some of these Jeeps also came with TH400 or the Turbo 400. And the transfer cases varied from year to year, from an NP208 to the 229, which is what this one has. Now, the 229 is a select track transfer case. The transfer case, ironically enough, all you do is flip a switch back and forth, and it's vacuum actuated. And it actually pulls a lever on the inside once it gets vacuum and switches from 2 to 4-wheel drive. You also have a high and low and neutral, so you have low gears. Now, what's interesting with this is how you can shift on the fly. So at 50 miles an hour, you can shift from 2 to 4-wheel drive. When the later Jeeps came, which is the flick of a switch, when the later Jeeps came, you had to grab a lever and yank it into four-wheel drive. And you have to yank it properly, because if you don't yank it right, you're going to yank it into neutral or for low, which I guarantee you has happened to people, to whereas this, you just flip a switch. So it's kind of like they downgraded, actually, in the later years. Of course, today, now you got buttons and little knobs, but yeah. So you have the dash right here, which has headlights. You have the dimmer switch for the dash lights and the interior lighting. You have the rear window up and down. You have the rear window defrost, which does not work on mine. You have fog lights. This Jeep actually has vents. So the vents, when you pull them, you can actually open up the vents by your feet down here, which is actually really nice. You have the smoker windows. So, as I call them, smoker windows, because that's what people did. You open these things up. The spring is actually not working on mine, so it kind of flops around. But, yeah, it's pretty cool, actually. The interior on my Jeep did not come with a headliner when I purchased it. The headliner on these Jeeps are cardboard, and they all tend to warp because the roof rack leaks on these things. So I was lucky enough to find a 89 Grand Wagoneer with a non-sagging headliner, so this one is in perfect condition. And I actually installed a 5.9 Grand Cherokee soundbar in the back. And the headliner, if you're wondering, is a vinyl, so it's like a burgundy Cordovan vinyl to match the leather interior of this Jeep. I actually did put regular black headliner on this because the interior of this Jeep is black and Cordovan, and I thought the black would match because it's pretty much the whole theme of the Jeep. Now, this center console for most people is a nightmare, and they don't work anymore. They have a compass and temperature in Celsius and Fahrenheit, and that's about it for the Grand Wagoneers. You also have dome lights in here. You have the typical stuff for your sunglasses and all that stuff. Now, my dome light works because I have been building computers since I was a kid, so electronics are easy for me. I actually replaced all of the switches. All of these Grand Wagoneers, I guarantee you, will not have... You hear the clicking? They all tend to kind of heat up from the decades, and it kind of melts the switches, and they don't click or they don't work anymore. Another problem is the circuit board in here. The circuitry tends to pop the capacitors, and that tends to take the circuit board with it. Maybe you're lucky and you can replace the traces and the capacitors, which is what I did, and it works great now. So, you do not have cup holders in this Jeep. You have like tiny little cup holders in the console down here. Hence the reason why I installed this Buick Roadmaster thing, because you have cup holders and storage. So, yeah, I'm 30 minutes into this video. I could go on and on for hours. But I'm going to be talking about the rust spots real quick, and then I'll let you guys go. So these Jeeps, and this is if you're in the market for purchasing them, they will rust. Guarantee you, they rust from the rivets. All these rivets right here. Hence is why this is what mine is doing. It's rusting down here. It's rusting at the rivets right here. These Jeeps also tend to rust at the joints right here where the metal joins itself. So that I need to fix. They all tend to rust at the wheel well right here. So they rust from the inside out. They also tend to rust at the dog legs right here. They also tend to rust on the inside right here on the quarter panels. You can actually see mine is starting to bubble, start to rust right here. Another problem area for rust would be the rocker panels. You see how mine is cracked right there. On the other side, the rocker panel has many holes in it. Now, one of the major rust spots that I found on this Jeep as I was working on it was the shock mount. The shock mount on this Jeep, unfortunately, was designed poorly. The shock mount is right here. You see how it bolts up to the frame. Now the shock mount has no drain. So this mount is actually hollow. So when dirt and debris get inside of here, it just builds up and up and up and up. And it actually rots out the C-channel, which is actually 2 C-channels welded together. So it's a solid frame right here. It actually rots out the frame, goes down below. All that dirt clogs up the drain for the frame right here, rots that out. So yeah, that's not fun. The other rot on these Jeeps tends to be on the rear frame, especially where the leaf spring mounts are. That mount right here, these things tend to rust really badly. As you can see, I've had to repair mine by putting some plates on there and welding it back together. The frame tends to rust where the trailer hitches bolt up to, because you got a bracket bolting up against the frame, which holds all kinds of dirt, debris, road salt, rusts out the frame. The other rust spots that you want to look for when you purchase this vehicle is down here. Let me turn the light on. So, this looks nice and clean, doesn't it, right? See, there's no rust at all, but I've had to fix this. This was a nightmare. The gas tank is right here with its skid plate. The gas tank has a foam insert and a rubber insert, which hold moisture, thanks to Chrysler. And they all tend to rot right here. So when you purchase one of these vehicles, look for frame rot. The frame will be rotten, especially in a vehicle in the salt belt. So mine, as you can see, I welded right here. There's a new frame in here. So I actually cut from the inside up all the way up here, and this frame is actually from the 78 Cherokee Chief, because they are all interchangeable. So I welded a new frame in here. I don't know if you can see it. Maybe you can't, but yeah, that's a whole new frame right there. The body mounts tend to go bad. These body mounts are new. I don't really want to be driving my Jeep and have the body fly off, because I believe there was a man from many, many years ago on one of the Jeep forums who got in an accident and his body basically flew off of his car. You want to fix the body mounts, trust me. My body mounts were so bad, especially in the back there, that I could actually grab the bumper, lift the body off of the frame, and just bounce it up and down. So I have a 2-inch lift. It's actually 3 inches in the rear. I got a 1-inch block and a 2-inch lift on my springs. The front is 2 inches. The other rust point would be right here. This is a cross member that comes all the way across to where I'm at, and they all tend to rust right there where that cross member is. I don't know if you can see that, where my finger is pointing. They all tend to rust right there. So if you purchase one of these vehicles, look at the cross members. I've actually had to cut the upper C-channel out. You can see my welds. I actually had to cut the upper C-channel out, and I had to weld a new plate up there, because the problem is the cross member sits on top of the frame, and metal on top of metal, it will rust out, and it actually starts to sag your upper lip on the C-channel. So that is something you want to keep an eye out for. You know, you got the typical transfer case, transmission. You have a Dana 44, as I was saying, double carding drive shaft in the front, which are interchangeable to various years for the Wranglers and the Cherokees, etc. You have a catalytic converter, which has a air intake tube for emissions. Mine is removed because I've removed all the emission stuff. I do have the cat, but I don't have the emission junk on there anymore. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. You know, there are other quirks that these Jeeps have, but overall, mine has been extremely reliable. I have never broken down in 6 years. I have put 40,000 miles on this car, and never had an issue other than typical stuff, leaking radiator, you know, bad alternator, etc. So yeah, as you can see, I did some other stuff. You know, I added a additional roof rack on top of the existing one, off-road lighting, 2 to 3 inch lift. Have 31 inch mud terrains on there. Now 31 inches may not seem big, right? Well, today's Wranglers with their massive 37, 40 inch tires, the wheel wells are different on these vehicles. Even with like a 4-inch lift, you really cannot fit much bigger than 31 inches because it will rub. The only way to solve that is cutting out the wheel wells, and I'm just not doing that. I'm not cutting my wheel wells out just to get a 33 or 34 or 35 inch tire on there. I don't want a 6 or 7 inch lift that just looks obnoxious to me. The Wagoneer, in my opinion, looks great with a 2 to 3 inch lift. Anything more than 4 inches just looks ridiculous. So that's just my opinion. So don't get offended if you have one of these Jeeps and you have like a 20-inch lift on there. So, do what you want to do. But I think they look perfect with 3 inches. So, but that's just me. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Sorry for it being 35 minutes long, but there's just so much stuff I could talk about this Jeep. And the reason why it's so polished and clean right now is because, unfortunately, you can still see it, which sucks, is I got some kind of black mold on my paint, and even with a polish compound and a polisher, I could not get most of it off, so it's still like 50% there. Basically kind of ruined my paint. Wash your vehicles, don't let them sit like I did. So it still has a shine to it, so that's fine. So hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thank you very much.